Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. This is episode 76 on August 23rd, 2021, Google Tasks Redesigned and Productive Uses of Photography, plus the productivity and technology news this week. Welcome to you who are watching us live, and of course, welcome to those of you who are listening to the podcast or watching the video after the fact. So each week, we review and discuss the productivity and technology news headlines of the week, and so we are going to cover the productivity articles in our first part. We'll come back after the break for our headlines regarding big tech and small tech, and then we will do our productivity resources of the week. Then we will tackle this week's theme, which is productive uses of photography, and then we'll discuss our featured story of the week. We'll have some announcements or an announcement before we close out. And so let's get into our productivity articles this week. Augusto, what's our first article?
So work case. I don't even know how to say that word. Workcation are a total scam. Let me clarify before I even continue discussing this article that I thought only business owners do workations. I've been doing workations for the longest time, but it's true. My company paid for the vacation. I have never thought as an employee that my employer will send me into a workation. Do I have work on vacation? Yes, I have. But that's working on my vacation. Never this thing of, go and take your family and work half a day while your family trip. I have never done that. So that said, I'm in complete agreement with this article. I don't know who is doing that, but that's a scam.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever done work? Have you ever done that? Not on your company as an employee.
No. I've had companies send me on business trips, and I have gone on vacation, and I have done staycations where I have taken time off of work and stayed at home.
True.
But I've never done. But I've never done a workcation, and I think the way in which this particular author, he clearly is a bit biased in terms of his perspective on it. But I am also biased. I disagree with the notion of a workcation. I don't think we should be having companies force employees, not force, but encourage employees to basically work on their own dime in locations, especially those of us who are personal productivity minded. I think that takes advantage of high performers in a way that I don't think it takes advantage of people who are potentially not necessarily doing as much work as they could while on company time or quote unquote company time. So, I think that, for those of us who are performance and results oriented, this could be potentially useful. If you can fit your workday into 4 hours and then go spend the rest of the time with your family in some location, I think that could work. I think it can be. But there are those of us who, are still going to work a normal workday, and that's not a vacation, and it's not disconnecting, and it's not causing the sense of relaxation and reduced stress that's necessary for us to take time off and to avoid burnout. So I think this whole concept of workation is a little bit of a smoke and mirrors for organizations to somehow present to the public that they're doing good for their employees, when in reality they're probably taking advantage of them to some extent. Especially this whole Airbnb and Landing and other companies that are doing this stuff sounds to me, as you said, like a scam. And by the way, the author clearly, having a particular position here, he noted that the Federal Labor Standards Act of 1938 set that minimum wage, $7.25 USD, and the standard work week at 40 hours per week. It's funny enough, if you take 1938 and just use inflation, then we would currently be at $141 per hour for a minimum wage. So just, keep that in mind when we think about the idea that we want to move the minimum wage to, say, a whopping $12 or $15 per hour. People in 1938, when that federal minimum wage was set into place, $7.25 could buy a lot more than it can today. It's 5% of what it could buy today, that same $7.25. So whatever your political persuasion, we do need to be mindful of the fact that inflation is real. we're worried about inflation right now in the economy, at least in the U.S. economy, as we recover. And we need to be mindful of the fact that as we come out of this, we need to pay people a living wage so that we're able to get them back in the economy and spending money so that we can have a rightful and good future in the economy. All right, next up.
So our next article is, here is how the best teams run their meetings according to a CEO who's obsessed with productivity. And it was a really interesting, they asked for simplification. Okay, who really needs to be here? Who, Bezos is famous, quote famously at least, I don't know if that's true, that his meetings can only have so many members to as 2 pizzas to feed the people. But the reality is the culture need to move to where it is okay to accept decline, send somebody, or be just in a call. I'm going to be here listening unless you need me. I am not in the meeting. And those things are important. The other thing that the article talk is what they talk, leave room for whole time. And it's been reading more and more about changing that 30 minutes to 25 so you get those 5 minutes to get ready to the next meeting, because I have seen so many of my clients going meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and they don't even have time to, let's say, go to the restroom. Ooh. Okay, and that's the reality. I mean, we laugh, but I have seen that more and more. So let's see, today we're going to talk a lot about meetings, because
the next article talks about 30, 60, and 90 and reducing those as well, right?
In reducing those. And I've been doing those. My meetings are 25 minutes, 45 minutes, and that's it. I try to avoid meeting longer than 45 minutes. And there is no way as a default to set them up. We need to discuss let's make a meeting for that meeting, because I try to avoid them like the plague. And I try to make that 25 minutes so I have time to process that meeting, because and I love this article from Forbes, when talk about the visible stuff, the invisible stuff, and it's so true. The visible stuff are those meeting phone calls. The invisible stuff is everything else. Hey, I need to return calls. I need to do my work. I need to, again, go to the restroom, eat a snack, drink a glass of water, walk to the thing to get a glass of water and a cup of coffee. And how many people are on these environments, meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, not even having a chance to do that? And to make it matter worse in some cases, to carrying that as a badge of honor.
Yeah, I think the two articles really blend well together. I mean, one is that companies should feel a comfort level to be able to say that they don't belong in a meeting, that it won't add any greater value for them to be in the meeting, and that's a good metric by which we should set standards for who should be in attendance at a meeting, not for purposes of excluding people from meetings, but letting them opt out and having the trust in the team to know that that's the case. And then this hall time, I look at it from a little bit different of perspective, because I know that when I meet with a client, I may need an extra few minutes here or there in order to be able to work with them. And so I will usually book 60 minutes if I know that I'm going to need 40, 45 minutes with them. And it's all right for us to end early in essence. But I do note that I will always buffer time between meetings so that I'm able to get that other, as you noted, kind of invisible work. I consider it mise en place. It's the maintenance work between meetings that are necessary. I need to debrief. I need to make sure I capture items that came from a meeting. I need to be then able to take bio breaks and move between meetings, whether it's physical or virtually. There's still time. I want to stand up and stretch before I go into my next meeting. Those kinds of things are necessary. And so whether you're doing 30, 60, 90, or 25, 45, 75, and taking that excess time for hall time, so to speak, it's fine. I mean, like, I basically, if I'm meeting for 30 minutes, then I'm going to take a 10-minute break between there, and I'll just start my meeting at 9:30 ends the meeting, 9:40 is when the next meeting starts, or 9:45. And I think a lot of people have a little bit of reticence to not start on the hour, on 30, or on and I don't have that problem. I'm like, we're meeting at 9:45, and that's when we're going to meet, because I need 15 minutes between this meeting and that meeting in order to get to the next meeting, so to speak, even if it's just virtually. I need to do other things. And so that's been incredibly useful for me in terms of, yes, I can have quote unquote back to back meetings, but those meetings have that buffer time between it so that I'm able to do what I need to do. And I've actually started to think about, really, if I had to travel to the meeting, what would the travel time be? And booking that time in as buffer time for those meetings. And the reason for that is that I used to get a lot of other things done when I was traveling to meetings, whether that be reading or phone calls with my mom. All of that stuff is kind of lost, because now all of the time feels like I should be on, because it's saved time that was once travel time. So I have been trying to scale back in that sense so that I can recapture some of that time, some of that activity that was between it, podcast listening and reading and so on and so forth. So consider that when you think about how long a meeting should be and how much time you need between meetings in order to still stay effective. All right, on to our next article.
So our next article is a survey. It's Yahoo Finance, and it's a survey that says 90% of Americans want less meetings at work to enhance productivity. And the service is interesting. 90% want, 44% of them reporting having 2 or 3 scheduled calls or meetings a day. 20% reported 4 to 6. But it comes back to what we are saying. It's 2 or 3 scheduled calls. That's a schedule. What happened with the ones that are not planned? And the reality is, as you said, it used to be when we were more mobile that, I have all these meetings, but I also have this time that I'm going to drive from a meeting to another. I'm going to do this. And I had those times to decompress. I admit it. Now that I don't move, I need to block my calendar. So I have those times to get out of this chair, sit on somewhere else to decompress, because otherwise, before you notice that you're sitting here hours, meetings of meetings, because you have nowhere else to go. There is no kids to pick at school. There is none of that. So I get it. Why people. It is really interesting, because I've been reading how it's been now the 18th month mark that is showing or beginning to surface all the things that people were mentioning 12 months ago or for 18 months ago about the pandemic and what was going to come, and these fatigues and all these issues. And that, again, the resilience seems to show that it was up to good 18 months of being inside and don't need to go anywhere before people really hit the point that we are starting to see, where it's now starting to show. Kids are starting to show, adults are starting to show, and things are getting interesting.
Yeah, I really found it interesting and kind of affirming for me that people being punctual to meetings is so important. And when people are not punctual to meetings in a virtual world, it is actually more kind of debilitating to your schedule throughout the day when you have things that are scheduled just right. There was a little bit more wiggle room when you were traveling and going to in-person meetings because you had to space things out a little more. So there was buffer time, so to speak, between those things. And I feel like in the virtual work from home, distributed workspace we're in right now, that makes it a little bit more difficult. And so people should really think about how to engage their coworkers and clients in being more punctual to these meetings. Showing up 5-10 minutes late to a virtual meeting when you're basically staring at a blank screen, or when everybody else is sitting inside of the meeting room waiting for one person to show up, that is incredibly it just hurts the overall kind of vibe of the meeting, right? It's already a somewhat awkward experience for many people being in a Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet environment. And then you hurt it even more when people have to now make chit chat where they were really planning on getting into the details of the meeting agenda. So just good to be reminded of that. All right, on to procrastination.
Ooh. The Goodman Project is a great article. This is why you think procrastination is beyond your control. And it talks about, what these are the three causes that lead the author of the article to procrastinate: overthinking, burnout, resistance, and imposter syndrome. 4 things. And it's a good article. One of the things when I procrastinate and is usually for me is missing data. It's rare part of overthinking, maybe burnout, but the biggest one for me is resistance. And resistance is usually lack of data. There is something that I don't have, or that I have not defined, or that I don't know where I'm going or how I'm going to get there, that make me procrastinate on all these things. And so, but these 4 things I think are really useful to look at procrastination, not as the final things, one of the, look at the causes of this procrastination. What is causing you to procrastinate? Everybody does. The important thing is to understand what are the main things that make you procrastinate.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me. I've read a lot on the subject of procrastination, and I actually just recently read the 1995 book Procrastination and Task Avoidance Theory, Research, and Treatment by Dr. Ferrari et al. And their perspective on procrastination, and this is back in 1995, was very much this is a maladaptive behavior that should be considered a psychiatric problem. And we have I think over time, from the work of Dr. Timothy Pitchell and others, really we understand procrastination more and better today. And so I highly recommend folks to think through why they procrastinate and try to set up interventions, behavioral interventions. What that means is just things that help support you through the process of procrastinating if you feel like the procrastination is not just the everyday type, right? That it's actually causing you to have problems with moving work forward. But otherwise, I think we spend a little too much time hyper-focused, so to speak, to the author's perspective, overthinking procrastination, and instead of just getting back to work. And we'll be better off just thinking less and doing more. Doing leads to better thinking in many cases. And so action over thinking, I think, is what we should lean into when we are overthinkers. And I know that can be difficult for folks, so I'm not saying it's easy, but just know that, I think anyone who's interested, look at the work of Dr. Timothy Pitchell. I think it's a far more and useful perspective, and less of that kind of like there's something wrong with you when it comes to procrastination. And there could very well be psychological and mental health reasons for procrastination, so it can be a part of that. But I think pathologizing procrastination too much, I think, puts a lot of pressure on folks, which then causes anxiety, which leads to distress, which leads to more procrastination. So just like we should all, as we talked about last week, take a chill pill, and and it's okay if it's a little bit of procrastination. It's conscious deferral, and then you can get back to work on actually doing what you need to do. So, all right, onward to our next.
To our next one is, what is flow time technique and how to boost your productivity with it? And the article described flow time, said is work like a Pomodoro-like timer. It increases your productivity by accelerating the flow state on your brain. What differs from the Pomodoro is the Pomodoro technique is a set time of working and breaks. And that has never worked for me, okay? Because Yeah, when the task is 10 minutes, fine. I can take the break or get to the next task and no problem. But nothing bothers me more than when I'm deep into that and the Pomodoro rings. So instead, this idea of the flow time where I can put a timer and start working and then base it on the length of the work, then get a break. Hey, if it's under 25 minutes, take a 5 minutes. If it's 25 to 50 minutes, take 8-minute break. 50 to 90 minutes, take 10-minute break. More than 90 minutes of flow, take 15 minutes. That is something that I think for the style of work I do will be much more effective than the Pomodoro technique. Those little boxes have always been problematic for me. But this I had not read before about this flow time technique. So I was really excited with the article. And the article even bring a couple of apps at the end that could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I have to say I'd never heard of the term flow time technique, but basically I was doing this basically since day one of the Pomodoro technique, because I was never adhering to the Pomodoro's 25-5, 25-5, 25-5,
Yeah.
and then the 10-minute break after you're following whatever you're closing that loop of the Pomodoros. So I just always decided I know how much time work takes. I'm going to work for that block and then I'll take a break thereafter. And so when I saw this article, I just thought, oh, this really kind of codifies what I'm already doing, not in these blocks of time, but in my own blocks of time. And so I just thought it was great. So good that people are, putting, at least they're putting a name to it in terms of flow time technique.
Right.
But I see it as just basically utilizing how much time you need to get work done, time bounding it, and then breaking between those things. So all good stuff there. All right, we have covered the productivity articles this week. We are going to take a break, and when we get back, we will come back for our technology, productivity-related technology news this week and the rest of the show. We'll see you after the break.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating. And there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, joined here, of course, by Augusto Pinaud, and we're going into the second half of our show to cover the productivity technology news this week. What's our first story, Augusto?
Well, since we have been talking about meetings, let's talk about Zoom. It seems completely appropriate. But Zoom gains focus mode, and it's going to help reduce the distraction in virtual classrooms. You know, I was reading an article on the Atlantic earlier today, talking about, great, now we are all going back to school. Remote schooling, it's almost been banned in every state in the United States, at least. But what we have seen is cases over cases over cases of COVID in these kids. So really, we're taking away from those parents who are concerned about it, or were trying to, or have the possibility to have, this remote environment, the remote environment. That said, it's still interesting to see Google Meet and Zoom trying to continue improving in this, because I think what we're going to see as the school year progresses is a hybrid model. Some of this, we are going to be in times where we are going to send to school. There are going to be times that they are going to need to be in a remote environment. So it's good to see that they are continue working into this and trying to make the kids, especially little kids, more engaged into classrooms.
Yeah, I can see this being useful even in my own adult workshops online, where the folks who are in the learning environment don't want to be distracted by somebody else potentially looking at them while they're trying to learn. It's a little discomforting, and I can see this being very useful. That they can see me, they can see themselves, they can turn off their own. They can so folks know when you are in Zoom, you can actually turn off that self view, so you don't have to see yourself at all. You're still on camera, but you just don't see yourself because, well, in normal times, you're not. When you're sitting in a meeting, you don't have a mirror sitting on the table. You're not looking at yourself while you're looking at other
that's
people.
That's you. Some of us travel with our mirrors.
Well, we are the rarity. You are the rarity then, and most of us do not normally sit around with mirrors. But it's disconcerting, and it leads to more Zoom fatigue. And so this is one way to be able to reduce that. And just for those who are not aware, please don't read the comments on these sites. When you go to macrumors.com and you get into people are just nasty. They're just mean to each other. Gosh, people don't need to be so mean to each other. So I think that this is a good feature. There's a clear case for it being utilized. And if you don't want to utilize it as a host of your Zoom meetings, don't. But in education environments and those of us who are in the andragogical environment, that is the adult education environment, we potentially could utilize this as well. On to our next story, Augusto.
Okay, the next one is a comment from Mike925 about how the new Samsung and Google Wear OS, it's giving Apple much needed competition. And we discussed this in detail with Art on the event we did in Anything But Idle comment in the show. But I believe into this. The better Google Wear gets, the better the Apple will get, and vice versa, because now there is going to be some competition to really get good into this. So I am really looking forward to see what this is going to bring. They are discussing about the looks, they are discussing about how it's going to work, the wrap up, and many things. So if you are a smart user, a smartwatch user, and you want more information on what this was and how they think is going to affect Apple Watch, as well as the improvements that are coming for Wear OS, please make sure to check the article and enjoy.
Yeah, I'm so thinking that the Galaxy Watch 4 will be the right watches for me. The only thing that's holding me back right now is actually the fact that the 3-in-1 sensor, the health sensors, the ECG and the BIA, data, that will only work with Samsung Health app, and therefore I don't think will work on non-Samsung phones. And of course, a lot of providers do that. They have exclusivity for some period of time before it goes to the other. But I don't like the idea that I'm spending that much money on a watch and then they're going to limit my features when I have the Google Wear OS with the Google's flagship Pixel phone. They're going to limit me on the best features. It seems a bit convoluted there. So I'm hopeful that we can find some way to get around that and still get access to those monitors, because that's one of the reasons why you have a smartwatch, is that it can do these smart features. And so, but I agree with the article that we need better and greater competition among the parties. And I know I say this almost every episode when we talk about Galaxy watches. Please, Google, put out your Google Pixel Watch. I really want the Google Pixel Watch.
They're waiting for you to buy the Galaxy, so they release it. They're watching closely your credit card expenses, so they release.
Jeez, I mean, I keep saying, I bought this this original watch that I have, and I've loved it for the past 4, maybe 5 years, and it keeps on ticking, and it keeps on doing so well. And I want the upgraded Wear OS. I want the watch that is going to fit me for most of the time. And the Wear OS on the Galaxy Watch 4 just looks beautiful. I think it'll be a great watch, but I would much rather have it perfectly paired to the phone that I have. I want it to be a Pixel watch with a Pixel phone, or a Samsung S21 or S22 with the Galaxy watch. Like those make sense to me because they're so tightly bound together. And I'm hoping that Google, gets their act together and finally launches that this fall. But I'm not also going to hold my breath.
Well, at least on that they may not have their act together, but seems like in Google Lens they have their act together, and it's coming to the desktop, and it's good. Share more for the people who are not familiar with Google Lens, what that is and why this is so cool in the desktop.
Yeah, so Google Lens is both an application and a feature built into Google Camera. So you can install this on iOS devices, so you're not limited to any platform. You can install this on your mobile devices, and now you will soon be able to install this into Chrome, or the features will be basically flagged into Chrome, and then you'll be able to turn them on. And the idea here is that you can hold up a webcam or hold up your phone or tablet on something and say, I wanted to identify a particular flower. I could hold up Google Lens to it and it will identify that flower. And it's like doing a Google search with a live video feed. So it's capable of taking an image and identifying it. It can also scan QR codes. So whenever you're at a restaurant and they show you a QR code for the menu or to sign up for their newsletter or anything like that, that QR code, when you hold it up, you can, in the Google Camera app, you can slide over to Lens. It's under usually modes. It may be in different places depending upon your version of Android, but you can then slide over to it. If you're on iOS, you install the Google Lens app, you open it up, it'll be open and ready to activate. And it'll, in essence, allow you to click on it. And when it's hovered over it, if it sees a QR code, it'll read the URL, and you can then go ahead and click on that link, and it will take you to the QR code terminal destination. And so you have a real capacity here for Google Lens to identify all kinds of things. So say you don't understand like what kind of screw that is, on a part from IKEA. Pull out Google Lens, aim it at the screw, and it will search all of Google and try to determine that thing for you. If you don't understand if that's a tick or a flea, you can again hold up Google Lens over it and it will identify that object, and then you will be able to know whether or not you need to go get more medical attention. Like, it's just so many amazing features within Google Lens. It's a very, very powerful, and now it's being brought to Chrome, which is just phenomenal. So that is Google Lens for Chrome desktop.
So our next story is on Microsoft Teams, and for most people, Microsoft Teams is for internal communication, but there is more than it. Okay, you can associate a phone number to that, and I'm sure that Microsoft will continue pushing for companies to get rid of their voice over IP and their phones to just have Microsoft Teams. And honestly, to a certain extent, if you live on that environment, it makes sense. Okay, yeah. Unify the text, unify the messages, unify everything to one platform. So regardless where your user grab the conversation, they can continue the conversation exactly where they were.
And even more important than that, just to step in, remember that Skype is going away. Skype for Business is disappearing soon. And when it does, Teams will be the replacement. So for phone-based communications. So it's a done deal. Microsoft Teams. Yeah. So understand, even if you think, oh, well, I don't really need this because I have Skype, you will very soon.
Yeah. And so they now are making spam efforts or anti-spam efforts, I may say, okay, to making this phone call so you don't get noise for the spam. You get noise for the numbers you know. So they're really trying in preparation to this transition to really make this more powerful and to try to protect you from pranksters and scammers and these kind of things. So good for Microsoft.
Absolutely. Yep. Love it. All right. On to our next story.
Our next story is on MindNote. That's the app I use for mind mapping, and I love it. But they announced the outlining feature, I don't know, sometime in 2020, where in the Mac, you could create the outline and then turn it into mind map and vice versa. That is great. I use this when I go to meetings, and I love it. But now they finally bring it to the iPhone and the iPad. That means I can now get into the meetings, put the outline, create the outline, and then turn it into a mind map. That is what I like to work, and I'm really excited about it.
Fantastic. Love mind mapping software, and good to see them bringing feature parity cross-platform. Next up.
The next one is, according to this article at least, the best new Chrome OS feature you are not yet using.
Yeah, this is great. So they're basically giving you the capability to determine how what will open when you start up Chrome OS. And so to date, this has been a huge frustration of mine. If you update to the latest version of Chrome, the machine blips off. It does its little update. It comes back, and it only usually takes less than a minute for it to do all of that work. If you open up a Chromebook and press the power button, it takes 8 seconds to launch the OS anyway. So an update usually takes very limited time, and so it restarts. But it restarts you with a fresh Chrome page. It just kills all of your tabs and you're back at nothing. And then when you even go in, click on the more options icon, the 3 dots, and then you drop down to see your history, everything's gone. It's so annoying. So this is the solution to that, which now they're going to give you some available flags to be able to say, I want you to open me up where I was. I want you to kill Chrome. I don't want Chrome to open on start. I want you to maybe open up another application on start. Things that we've had in both, in basically exposed in Windows for a long time, not necessarily exposed in Mac as easily, but still capable of being done on Mac OS. So now they're giving us those features to be able to say on startup, open these things. And that's just very basic, but a huge benefit to.
But I think that in conjunction with the PWAs, if you are going to start sending that to the PWAs, the progressive web applications, that is going to be really, really fun and interesting.
Absolutely. All right. So that closes up our articles this week, our news this week. And that brings us along to our productivity resources of the week. And as I tell you every week, Augusto and I come across many different productivity services, tools, apps in our productivity journeys to bring you the news every week. And so in this segment, Productivity Resources of the Week, formerly known as New Tools of the Week, we each bring you a tool that we think you might like. It could be new, it could be old, but we just think you might enjoy it. And so with that, let's bring up our first productivity resource this week. And mine this week was going to be, because our theme this week is productive uses of photography, I thought we would talk about Snapseed. And as for those of you who don't know, I'm the Google Small Business Advisor for Productivity. So I spend a lot of time talking about different Google products. And I always say to folks, there's so many. I mean, there's 500 plus products and services that Google provides just in Google proper. And that's not even stepping into Google Cloud and their space outside of that. And so Snapseed is one of those products that is really quite competent and great. And what it is it's basically a photo editor that's been developed by Google, and it allows you to do all kinds of fun things with the application. And again, you can install this on Android and iOS and on Chrome. So you can have that Android app installed on Chrome, and then you have a full-fledged photo editor. You have tight integration with Google Photos and Google Drive, and so you have the capability of doing all of these really great tools. Like you could do the selective focus where you can put focus in and then it blurs out the rest of the screen. Really, really strong technology here, being able to do some really sophisticated photo editing. And really 95% of what you would want to do in terms of photo editing can be done here in Snapseed. There are a few things it cannot do, but for the most part, you should be able to get your photos edited quickly and easily using the tools and filters within Snapseed. And it's free. And so, yeah, I just can't recommend Snapseed more for those folks who are looking for a competent photo editor on their Android, iOS, and on their even desktop. You can get the Chrome OS Android application working in that environment as well. Augusto, what is your
I also pick a photography editor called Pixelmator, and Pixelmator, it's really, really powerful. It allows you to do brushes. It allows you to edit pictures. You can do so much. It's really a powerhouse, but also it's an affordable powerhouse, that anybody can do. Works incredibly well on the iPhone or incredibly well on the iPad. You can do fonts. You can do really almost anything to images and all that. So it is, in a certain way, the equivalent to Adobe Illustrator, I think it is. So
Photoshop.
Photoshop, yeah. So, except that it works, it's completely usable, and it runs on the Mac, it runs on the iPad, and everything else.
Fantastic. Wonderful. All right, great. All right, so those are our productivity resources this week. Those are, of course, available in our show notes, so you can find links to those in our show notes when they are published. And so this takes us along to our featured story of the week, if I'm not incorrect.
You are correct.
All right, and it's our theme of the week. So we're going to talk very quickly about this week's theme. And as we talked in past episodes, we're phasing out the themes, but we have a few more themes left, and so we're gonna do our themes of the week discussions, and then they will probably end by the end of this month, I believe it is. So this week we're talking about productive uses of photography. We talked about some of the tools during productivity resources of the week, and so how do you utilize photography in your productivity system, Augusto? And just like while you're thinking, I'll just give one suggestion, which is that I really utilize all of my devices, literally all of them, including my laptops and my desktop, because they all have cameras. And I will just open up the camera app, and on the Windows desktop, you have Microsoft Windows Photos. What is it called? Windows Camera, I think, is the app. And of course, you have the camera app. I have Google Camera on my Pixel. I have an iPad, and I have the Chromebook. And so I just open up the camera wherever I am, whenever I am, and I capture physical open loops, a la GTD, basically things that I want to capture into my inbox. And this is incredibly useful for being able to do two things for me. One is to capture the item into my system. And by doing so, it captures the details of the open loop that I need to clarify and organize. But it also captures location. And so frequently, what you lose when it comes to physical things that need to be done in a place, like say, for example, somebody delivers something and I need to assemble that thing, right? So they deliver a new chair and I've got to assemble the new chair. Well, I need to remember, where's the chair? Where did I put it? Did I put it in the attic? Did I put it in the garage? Did I put it in the backyard because it's a lawn chair? Like, all of those things are captured by virtue of the photo. So I can actually just take a photo of it where it is in its place, and that's going to clue me into what it is and where it is, so that when I do clarify and organize it into my system, I have that information available to me. What are some other productive uses that you use with photographs?
I use that one, no doubt, but I think the one that I use the most is the scanner. Mm-hmm. The one that I use the most is the scanner. And I don't remember, I think it was a Trio, the first phone that I began using as a scanner. And that is the major use that I use.
Yeah, I definitely am in the same boat. I use it goes back and forth, but whether you're using, if I'm scanning a document specifically, then I'm probably going to just use Evernote or I'm going to use a physical scanner of paper. But if I don't have that around, then I'm going to use my phone. And if it's like something that I really need to scan really well, I've been using CamScan Pro, I think it is. I forget the name of it.
Oh yeah, I carry many moons ago, when I was a PC user, I carry a scanner that was pretty expensive at the time because it was really portable and you connected USB and it scanned that thing one page at a time, but you could carry with you. I was, away in a bag. And I remember when I started scanning, I think it was a Trio, and you could get pretty much, if you were patient enough, you could get it perfect. You just need to make the white background so nobody knew, okay? And nobody knew. And after that, I began taking things, there is a video that shows the computer, and you start the desk and how everything gets replaced and you end up in a laptop. Well, that's how it happened with me with the devices. But on the back, carry 2 laptops. Well, now I can carry 2 iPads. Oh, now I don't need to carry the scanner. I don't need the printer anymore. And things like that. But photography, the scanner was for me the big thing. I capture, I may see places that I want to see and take a picture. So I capture then, find the data later on when I'm at home, or I take a lot of screenshots. That at the end of the day is similar to do that. Take a screenshots and capture them. That I think is the most photography I do. I am not great at taking other kind of photographies, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so for those who are not aware, so Cam Scanner is a great application that I've used in the past. I don't use it as often, to be quite honest, but Microsoft Lens does a really great job, and so does Google Keep and Google Drive at basically capturing images and lifting the text out of those things. So this is not just paper. People sometimes limit themselves in the sense. Say that you're on a street corner and you see a billboard. Well, you can pull out Microsoft Lens or Google Keep or other applications that do this, but taking a picture of now that poster or that sign or that billboard, if there's text on it, it can lift the text out of it. Phone numbers, email addresses, URLs, domains to places. Yeah, and so that becomes useful information that you don't have to retype or get wrong, whatever. And so those are really great uses of being able to use photography. And the cameras now on phones are so good today that they do a really great job of that. So this can be on physical objects also. For example, I'll take the photographs of nutrition labels, and it will then be able to pull the text out of those nutrition labels so that I can see what the data is. Because sometimes the labels are just, they're like black text against orange background, and the technology can go ahead and lift it out. And now you can copy and paste it onto a black text, white background, or inverse. And now you can actually read it and see the details. So there are some really productive uses here that become much more useful in being able to see those things. And then, as Augusto noted, screenshots of things. I take so many screenshots of if there's a message thread between clients or with family members. A friend of mine basically gave me the other day, in a message, he wrote dates that he wasn't going to be available. And so I just screenshotted it and threw it into Evernote. So now I have those dates so that when I'm looking at my travel schedule and whether I'm going to go meet him for drinks or, whatnot, now I know his schedule because it's saved in and with the data that I'm looking for when I'm making that scheduling arrangement. So you can take all kinds of screenshots here. And, while you wouldn't consider it necessarily photography, it is a photograph that's in your system that you can then utilize. So definitely take advantage of all of these ways in which you can take photographs of things in productive ways. And so with that then brings us along to our featured story this week, which is that Google Tasks has undergone a redesign to add some new capabilities on Android and iOS. And so what have you learned, Augusto, about the Google redesign? And then I will talk about some of my other thoughts here.
Well, for what I understand, as of today, it is starting to roll out. So people are starting to see the design. That is a good thing. I'm happy that Google is doing this. It's making it better. You can now be able to see the task better. You will have the black, the ground, the black and the white, depending of the dark or the. And the other good thing is it's going to be available for everybody. Use basic workspace. So anything pay accounts, as far as I understand. But the idea of being able to display multiple lists in the same UI, just with tabs, it's going to be great. It's going to allow this to have a more advanced use of tasks instead of just having one list. I know few people who can live without tabs or has so few tasks that doesn't matter that they are all together. So
yeah,
it's
I think
good.
I think this is fantastic. I'm still hopeful. I'm still hoping that Google will bring this Google Tasks goodness to a desktop version. Right now, there is a link, and if Augusto reminds me, I will put it in the show notes for folks. But there is a way to actually force Google Tasks into its own open browser. But there is no desktop application, and it is embedded within Gmail, Google Calendar, and other locations. So it's very convenient to be able to create Google Tasks and to manage them from that sidebar. But I really like to see my tasks in one window and have that kind of float around so I can move and do things and check things off. And that's the it's just missing in the Google Calendar experience. So there is a way to do it. And so, just again, like I said, if for some reason I don't provide it to Augusto, just add a comment on somewhere and I will paste the link. But the idea is that you can do it. You can force the option, but it should just be easy. It should be easy to be able to snap out the Google tasks, to have, say, a PWA, for example, so that you'd be able to have Google tasks running, and to have this additional feature of being able to have task lists in tabs, so you can see this is work, this is home, or whatever the other contexts you need for being able to manage tasks. And I hope that at some point Google supports tags. And I know we've talked about that already, but I really feel like tags would be just bare minimum helpful to the ecosystem. But anyway, any final thoughts regarding Google's redesign of tasks in Android and iOS?
Nope.
All right. So that brings us along to announcements. What's our announcement this week?
So our announcement this week is tomorrow, Tuesday the 24th, or if you're listening to the podcast on Tuesday morning tonight, Dr. Frank Buck and myself are closing our series between Todoist and Remember the Milk. We have covered over 4.5 hours of content on comparison and testing and discussing about. And tomorrow we're going to the close and what we learned, what are the principles to understand, and a couple more things. So we will be on personalproductivity.club. You can go to the event. The event is free to attend, and we hope to see you guys there.
Yeah. So for those of you who are interested, just head over to www.personalproductivity.club. You can join the club there, and then, you know, if you're on Anything But Idle, I think there's a community button that'll take you in there as well, and that will override the need for me to have to approve you into the system. So if you want to get there fast, go to anythingbutidle.com and then click on the community tab, and you'll be taken right to the sign up page and be taken right in. It's free to join, and then you'll be able to find the Todoist channel. And it's inside the Todoist channel, correct, Augusto?
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you want to join, you got to find the Todoist channel, and then you'll see the event, and you can join from within that. And so looking forward to that event. All right. And with that, we have covered the productivity and related technology news this week. Thank you to Augusto Pinaud for putting together the show and helping to make this happen every week. Thank you, Augusto.
Always. It's always my pleasure.
All right, everybody. If we missed a story, I would like you to go over to anythingbutidle.com/076 first, and make sure it's not in the extra stories section, because we do put stories we don't cover in the extra story section. And but if it's not in that extra stories section, feel free to head over to anythingbutidle.com/contact. Click on the contact button and let us know. You can also tweet or DM us on Twitter at anythingbutidle, and let us know if we missed a story. We can always, add it into the next week's show and let folks know about something that may be important to the community. And so thank you for letting us know when we do miss a story. If you have a question or comment about anything we've discussed, there on the episode page, you can leave a comment. And so anythingbutidle.com/076, all of the episodes are numbered like that, so you can hop right over to a specific episode and leave a comment on it. While you're on anythingbutidle.com, there on episode 76, there you will see the show notes. Those include links to all the stories, tools, the productivity resources for the week. You'll see our extra stories section, and we include text transcripts. They're machine generated, but they should be good enough for you to be able to read through and understand. There's one that's under the read more link. Click on it. It'll expand the transcript so you can read it right there on the page. There's also a download link. Just click on the link below that, and it'll download a PDF for you to be able to download offline. If this is your first time watching the live stream, feel free to click the subscribe button or click the thumbs up button as well. The subscribe button will obviously notify you when we go live weekly. The thumbs up button helps let the Google and YouTube gods know that you liked our content, and it also helps to open us up to more personal productivity viewers. And so thank you for doing that. If you're listening in the podcast app and you don't subscribe to it, feel free to click the follow button if you're an Apple Podcast. But if you're in any other podcast app, it'll likely say subscribe, and that allows you to get new episodes downloaded for free each week when we put out new episodes. So thank you so much again, everybody, for spending this time with us. And so with that, we will see you all next time on Anything But Idle. And here's to your productive life.